Have you ever been in a situation where you sort of feel as if you're living in a Groundhog Day? You feel that you've been living the same day on repeat for the past year. Well, that's how I'm feeling recently. And, you know, in a lot of ways, it's the most interesting time in my life, I gotta say. Not something that I will say likely any other way. I think that a lot of great things are happening, but it's been just strange how things are panning out. You know, most every day I just tend to my responsibilities, take care of the pup, walk him out, cook, and it just feels like that on repeat. Um, and sometimes I want to sit down and wonder, what is life trying to teach me from this? As in, to try to make peace with this kind of arrangement, to try to make, because I think that it's gonna stay like this, at least for the foreseeable future. At least for the, very optimistically speaking, at least for the next 6 months or so. And more dramatically thinking, maybe for like the next 2 years or so. So so it sort of gives me perspective. It gives me a lot of things to think about. How is the next couple years is gonna how is the next couple years gonna look like and all that. But anyway, I've been using that time for self-reflection, and I've realized that it's all about buoyancy. Buoyancy is the name of the game. No matter what you do, no matter what you go, no matter what you're up to, the current cultural climate makes it so most people are apathetic to you, no matter where you are or no matter what you do. If you want to be of service, if you want to be of value, you need to incite something in people's emotional state. You could criticize that maybe that's a thing that's not ideal about the current climate, that it seems that what people feel is more important than the actual truth, right? But I had a lot of problems conveying a lot of what I believe in sometimes. And I think that I realize now that it's because I haven't mastered the technique, as in how to communicate what I really want to communicate to people, how to convey the right kind of impression that I want them to have from that. I was listening to this audiobook the other time. Said there's only two things, psychologically speaking: impressions and ideas. Impressions are first-hand knowledge from things, and ideas are copies of impressions that you get from people, or from impressions themselves. Which is really interesting, right? But anyway, so yeah, so I've had a lot of problems sometimes actually communicating, because turns out that it's a whole science on its own right to convey things the right way, to come off the right way to people. And there can be a lot at stake if you're doing that. If you're trying to communicate to advance your career, or to make relationships, establish connections with people around you, to form a community and all that, well, there can be a lot of at stake in those situations. So that's why I'm trying to mull over what I need to do to be better at that. But buoyancy is the name of the game. I know that it sounds over dramatic, but hear me out, right? Story time. I had a teacher when I was in high school, you know. He was an algebra teacher. His name is Cuellar, Juan Antonio Cuellar. In the remote possibility that he's listening to this, thanks. Thanks for your work. And bar none, he's been the best math teacher that I always had, because he had an impressive track record he actually designed the textbooks at school, I believe. And so he had an impressive track record because the school to which I went was not a school characteristic for its prowess or for its records, in terms of math or in terms of grades and all that. However, wherever this guy will walk into, he will turn an awful class of reprobate students. He will turn it into absolute gold. He will make it so everyone will pass the course. Everyone will actually develop skills. Even the most terrible students, those types that are never actually up to any good and all that. He will make it so even them will pass the course. I took 2 semesters of mathematics with him, and I learned a lot about that time. I learned a lot there. And so what I've noticed about this guy is that whenever he actually had free time during his classes, he will actually sit down and tell stories to the class about things, about the world, or about his personal life, or about his past. And he will always try to compel the students to do better because he had a lot of stories about how poor he used to be and how awful things used to be for him. Particularly, I remember this story about this one time where I don't remember what member of his family had a baby, but it turns out that they were so poor that they were not able to take care of the baby right, and the baby had died, and he had to sleep for a whole night next to a corpse because of that. How gruesome is that? And he will do something. And I tell you, now that I look back on it, I realized that all of this was incredibly clever and incredibly engineered to achieve his purpose of lifting up the average in every class that he taught. So he would do this thing where all of a sudden, without any particular reason, he will walk in and he will start just doing a pop quiz, without any anticipation or without any preparation before. He wouldn't have told anyone in the class about it in any way. So of course most of the class will flunk it because, I mean, again, a lot of high school kids are really no good at that, and because nobody was prepared for that. And so he will get so angry and so pissed when he actually took a look when he actually graded the tests. He will actually take the test and just rip him apart dramatically in front of the class. Like, it can't be that you guys are doing this to me, are doing this to every one of yourselves. No, he didn't say to me. He did. And he will do that to try to incite something in the students. And now I realize why. It's because you gotta compel people. It's all about poignancy, man. You gotta try to touch people's hearts in a way that actually moves them. And I think that's kind of one of the big problems of the current cultural climate, which is so prone to apathy, to lulling yourself to sleep in entertainment. To, as long as you have Netflix and a pizza, you're fine. You're not worried about the rest of the world. Whereas there's things that we should be talking about and changing and discussing. And for that's a debate that's just not happening because entertainment is just so much more powerful. That I also remember that this guy will actually make it an effort to bring in to cram extra time for the class. We will have classes on Saturdays sometimes. Somehow he will manage to rent out a space at a local football club, and we will go there. We will improvise, sitting around the field as if it was a classroom, and we will do additional lessons of whatever content we were currently going through in algebra, right? And to say, I think that a lot of my love for mathematics comes from that. I decided to pick up an exact sciences degree because of that, and here I am, right? So, and I think that he made mathematics seem like something very approachable and very easy to grok, really easy to understand, which is something that matters so much. There's a lot of teachers that sort of take this attitude that they're better than you, and that woe is you if you don't pass the course, and they just demoralize a bunch of the students. I actually think that is part of the business model of a lot of schools, because that way you get to make money, by having people pay for stuff because they're flunking and all that. So I think that I've actually applied that unconsciously to a lot of things in my daily life. I think that it actually matters. I think that it actually has taken me places, because people usually always have their guard up. They always have their guard up, and even more in the place where I live, right? But if you actually have something to contribute, something to teach people about, something to give, turns out that people are actually glad to have you around. What people never understand, always appealing to the identitarian aspect of things. As in, they think that the end all and be all of everything is your identity. And that's a freaking lie, man. That's as false as you can get. Nobody hates he who has something to contribute. They hate he who has nothing to contribute, who is always displaying themselves from a standpoint of needing something. It's like people don't hate migrants. They hate the idea that a migrant is going to take from them. Whereas if those migrants actually have something to give them, because the world doesn't care about you, they just care. The world is like, there's a person bleeding on the street. You gotta stop the bleeding. You gotta stop the bleeding somehow. You cannot stop the bleeding. Just step the freak away. Just let an expert actually take care of that. They just care about having their wounds patched. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about what you think or what you do. They care about something that you can provide, which is effective in their lives. So, and the way to reach people about that, the way to actually make your statement about that again, I think that it depends a lot on that subject of poignancy, on that subject of being able to break down that guard that people have sometimes. All right, that's enough rambling for now. Things are going great, and it's a beautiful day outside. It's really sunny. It's the middle of May. Have you done your taxes? You have done your taxes already, did you? You did your taxes already, did you? So I'm gonna go and enjoy the rest of my day. See you.